First item is to approve the minutes, last meeting. I need a motion.
Make a motion to approve minutes.
I second that.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Okay. Tanya, financial report?
I abstain, Steve.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at it. I'm abstaining.
Oh, okay. You got the right count?
5-1, 501.
Steve, did you want to do introductions since we have a new trustee?
Yes, we should. Okay. Let's, Eric?
Eric Gould.
Yeah, and we'll go around and do a quick intro too.
Eric Gould, live in Auburn, from watershed land, so.
You're an engineer?
Engineer, chief engineer on retiring, in the process of retiring from merchant vessel. So
Excellent.
I'm pretty familiar with septic systems, shipboard at least, and have a little bit of engineering knowledge.
Excellent.
Eric also owns the property across from the community center, and thank you very much for letting us trespass. The public really enjoys the trails there.
Yep. Own the old Thorn, the farm side.
Excellent.
Yep.
Steve Melks, I'm the city council rep for Water District and the president.
Bob Kavanagh, I'm a Water District trustee, lifelong resident of the city of Auburn on Field Avenue.
Jason Paulina, trustee, resident.
Dan Bellotto, trustee, and also on the Watershed Protection Commission.
Kevin Arell, trustee, and also live in the watershed.
Sid Hazelton, water superintendent.
Mike Broadbent, assistant water superintendent.
Tanya Dunn, finance manager.
Okay, good. Thank you, Sid. All right, so now it's time you're going to give us our financial update.
Revenues are good. There are a few timing issues with our billing with invoices flowing in. Expenses are over with payroll leading that without the overtime on main breaks during the month of February. And inflation is real. You can see it's hitting us already. Propane and chemical costs are up. We ended February with just under $2 million cash on hand. The general resolution water bond, we got notified today that that was approved.
Excellent.
So we will be moving forward with that closing, I think, in the end of May on that. And are there any questions?
Are sales really up 4% since last year, or is that Lewiston using less water?
Gallons sold are just 1% higher than this time last year.
Okay, I was just curious.
Any other questions? Okay. Ratify the payment of bills?
I move that we ratify the payment of bills.
Do you?
Tanya answered all my half a dozen questions. She answered them yesterday.
Excellent. Anybody else have any? I need a motion, second?
I'll second that with just one quick discussion item. It would have been $1,900 we would have saved if we were apportioned at the current use, just on the Lewiston bills alone,
Okay,
in the packet, $1,900.
excellent. Thank you. Anybody else have any comments? All in favor? Okay. All right, so now we've got, so in the 2 years that I've been here doing this thing, we haven't had a single person come to a meeting. So now we've got a whole room full of people. So we're talking, we don't even know what the rule is for the water district on open session and talking, I'm sure everybody's here for the same reason. So we have an open session now. In the council, you get 3 minutes, but it's about something that's not on the agenda. So I don't know how you guys want to do it, or what Sid, you've been here the longest, so what's the protocol for the water district?
I think it makes the most sense under Robert's rules. If it's something, open session is usually for something that's not already on the agenda to be brought up.
All right, so then we'll do that. The open session's for something not on the agenda. So anybody have anything they want to say? Okay. Is it about something on the agenda?
No, I'm just asking a question. Will we be able to ask any questions as you go through, or are we only allowed to talk at open session even about things that are in what you discussed.
Yeah, I think this is an opportunity for you to give your opinion.
Just right now, when we don't have any chance after we listen to everything to talk again.
Like I said, I think, it's not this isn't an interactive forum. This is a regular meeting that we do, that we have responsibilities that we have to address. So during the subject, you can come up and give your piece on whatever the subject is, and then we just got to do our regular business.
Yeah, so extra agenda packets here, if anybody's interested.
Okay, so, Mike, activity project
Oh,
report.
well-
I'm sorry, was there somebody that didn't want to
Yes,
have an
I
open
would like to
session?
speak.
Okay,
I
because
think
there's
a
going to
bunch
be,
of
if there's
us-
something on the agenda that you want to talk about, then that's the time to talk about that.
When it comes up on the agenda.
Right,
But now is the open session.
that's correct,
This is the time to talk about subjects that aren't on the agenda.
correct.
I would like to read a letter to the editor written by Neria Douglas because she says it and I can read it in 3 minutes easily.
Yeah, can you give your name and address?
I'm Ben Lounsbury, 505 West Auburn Road, Auburn. A 5-story gravel pit, the asbestos dump, the old burning dump, pine sawdust dump, interim landfill and demolition dump have been approved for commercial development next to Lake Auburn, our drinking water. At least they've approved it on the first vote. There will be a second vote next Monday. When I was an Auburn councilor, Neria Douglas, hazardous waste from the dumps was leaking. The gravel pit was a quarter of its current area and depth. 20 Maine Department of Environmental Protection reports document hazardous waste there. One 1994 report says the approximate volume of solid, sludge, and liquid waste is 2,220,000 cubic yards, and estimated 375 tons of chromium sludge and 50,000 tons of asbestos with an unknown quantity of industrial solvents there. Monitoring wells found 1 dichloroethane and ethylbenzene. A 2014 report states that groundwater elevation measurements indicate that regional groundwater flow is to the north toward Lake Auburn, and arsenic is consistently exceeded at all 3 groundwater monitoring locations, and high alkalinity levels suggest that landfill gas may be migrating in this area. People can find both reports by searching Grace Lawn Road at blah blah blah. The gravel pit has been depleted. The dumps seal up hazardous waste. Commercial development is dangerous there. Digging can invade the dumps. Building roads will change the topography. Sewage will have to be pumped up or in septic tanks. Too many questions need answers. Let's protect our city and lake. And just let me ask, I think this board should recommend to the city council that they postpone the vote, table the vote on the motion to change the zoning so that more study can be done. The $100,000 consultant did not say, was not instructed to report on potential development outside of the Lake Auburn drainage area. The city council thinks that the Lake Auburn drainage area does not include the Grace Lawn area. But this letter says that it does. Neria has done her research, and the drainage is uncertain. And I think it would be a disaster to allow building on Grace Lawn Road, and then we find out that toxins are draining into Lake Auburn, and we can't do anything about it. Just think of the PFAS disaster that's going on in farmlands around the nation. Why hurry? Let's just we should ask the city council to postpone the vote until more study has been done. Thank you.
I just have one question. How many people are from, represent Lewiston here?
This is the Auburn,
This is just the
Water
Auburn one.
District
I'm
Trustees.
just asking.
Yep.
So they have their own meetings, and then you have your own meetings? And you guys ever mix?
they're part of the city of Lewiston.
Right, but isn't the Water District a Lewiston-Auburn thing?
Nope,
Okay, so you are totally responsible for Auburn, and whatever, and Lewiston has nothing to do with for the water for a lake. from that
Sid,
Lake
do you
Auburn?
wanna, since we're in our regular meeting, which we have stuff to do, I'll let Sid.
I'm just asking questions.
Just organization-wise, we are a water district. We are not a City of Auburn department.
Okay.
In Lewiston Water is a division within their Public Works organization. So they don't have a separate board of trustees in Lewiston to address water issues. Those are addressed through the city council. So that's just, organizationally, that's how we're set up. We're different.
All right.
As you know, we share the water supply, and the real link we have is through the Lake Auburn Watershed Protection Commission, which is made up of 3 members from Auburn, 3 from Lewiston, 1 that represents the outlying towns of Hebron, Mine, and Buckfield, 1 that represents Turner, and the executive director of AvCog is also a member of that commission.
Okay. I was just curious.
Can we have your name and address,
Oh,
please?
I'm Pam Rousseau, and I live on West Auburn Road.
Steve, can I make a comment for the neighbors? One of the things the Auburn Water District is responsible for, and this is, I think, where you guys are all have your hearts, is we govern the bylaws for the protection of Lake Auburn. That's on our agenda today, and we're just doing a soft update on that. It's pretty much technical standards, but that document is available so far, the draft. It's public, right, Sid?
Yep, it's in the.
So that would be a good document for you guys to look at, the draft and the changes in that. Like we're adding Poland. There is a substantive change that we want to probably allow limited bodily contact, and that would be like for a fisherman to properly catch and release a fish, a kayaker to get in the water, a camp owner to maybe put their dock in or launch a canoe from their property. But no bodily contact beyond that, no swimming, no bathing, and we're not proposing any changes that would further pollute the lake, that's for sure. So that's the document that you guys, and that's what we do here, is update that every 5 years. And we're in the process of talking about that, and we'll hopefully have some stakeholder meetings, and we'd like to invite every single one of you.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it, Dan. All right, so anybody else have anything that they'd like to say in the open session? Okay, we're gonna close the open session, and now, Mike, activity and project update?
All right, activity report for the month of February. As you can see on the main report, we did continue with a number of water main breaks into the early part of February. Again, abnormal depth of frost did add quite a bit of workload to the staff out fixing water breaks. Luckily, the end of the month of warmer temperatures moved in, and the break frequency has subsided. So that's a good thing. Outside of that, just some normal stuff with hydrants. We have seen a number of new services and new connections to the water system. So those are up compared to last year. We did have a number of, again, with the cold temperatures, number of frozen meters and frozen service lines. But activating our bleeders really did help, reduce the number of frozen services. So that really was very effective. Shows us that program definitely works. Outside of that, unless anybody had any questions, that's the highlights from the activity report.
Just curious, Mike,
Yep.
the bleeders, what additional percentage of water are we using? I'm trying to figure out why we're down, or up 4%, Lewiston's down 4%.
It's a very small number, the amount of water going through the bleeders. I think we had 23 people, somewhere in that number, that did turn on and trickle some faucet, but we do read that through the meter reads. That is captured through that, so that we have that number. They're still running it, and we haven't done the cycle reads yet, so I can't tell you the volume. But from what we've checked so far, it's not a lot of water.
Has Kevin indicated why they're using less water by any chance? Are they not flushing? Are they?
I haven't brought that up in discussion.
Because last year we were not flushing toilets, but flushing hydrants.
Yeah, they wouldn't be flushing this time of year. I don't know. It could be. I've looked at it. I know our sales are up about 1%, and we're up about 1%. We have had a lot of new connections over the last 2 to 3 years. We've added some big apartment buildings. North River Road, seen an extra 30 units go in recently. We've been increasing in size, so we're using more water. We did have a number of water leaks. We do lose a lot of water. That's water that we're pumping at the lake and we're not selling. But the sales are up, so it's a combination of a few things.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Project.
Project? Go
Yeah,
ahead.
project update. This will be really quick. We are gearing up. We did have a meeting with the city today, their engineering staff and other utilities, electric, gas, telephone. Discussed our projects for this year. We're going to be starting in the next couple of weeks doing some of the prep work for our planned construction projects on 3rd Street, and then we'll be moving over to the Vernon Grove area. So next month, I do expect to come to the board with to seek permission to start using capital funds. So we'll have that on next month's agenda. That's all I had.
Okay. Okay, that brings us to new business. First item is election of officers. So,
In your packet, under the memo, I do have the current slate of officers, just to remind people. So this is the annual month where we do elect our officers. The current slate of officers is President Steve Milks, Treasurer Andy Titus, Superintendent myself, Sid Hazelton, Clerk Tanya Dunn, and Auditor H.R.H. Smith.
so why don't we do nominations for the officers?
Yeah, I would move to nominate the existing slate of officers, less the superintendent, until we can finish the review for his position.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, discussion?
I think Sid should be included in this. There's been no dissent as to why he should not be superintendent. He's done a fantastic job. No one here could disagree with that. I think Sid should be included.
So would you want to make an amendment?
Yeah, I'd like to amend it and amend that with including Sid Hazelton as superintendent on the slate of officers for the next coming year.
Can we get a second?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay.
It's just a discussion item. Is there a reason why we have to do the election of officers today without finishing the job review? I mean, we're planning on, putting them back in, of course. There used to be yearly contracts for superintendents. I'm not sure how long ago that ended. But now we just, normally we elect our officers after we've finished the job reviews. So that's the only reason why I'm bringing it up, I mean, if you want me to withdraw my motion,
It's more of a formality.
we could cover this in April. Yeah, it's just a formality. Or we move up the executive session to discuss the personnel matter.
I like your prior suggestion. Put the vote off for election of officers until our April meeting.
Okay.
Next
So
month.
I'll remove my motion.
Is that, you guys good with that?
The slate stays in place for a month?
Yeah.
So motion to table the election of officers, date specific to our regular April meeting.
Second.
Okay. And any other discussion on that? Everybody,
I did.
Andy will be back then too, so it'd be good to give him a chance to. All in favor? Okay, so we are moving that to next month. All right. Sid, water quality, proposed ordinance. City of Auburn proposed ordinance changes within the watershed. This is a discussion. Revisions to the zoning boundary changes, and this is regarding the area that is over the gravel pit.
Grace Lawn Road.
Grace Lawn Road, right? Which is actually, we had a comment earlier about that, so. Zoning, that's what this is, the only zoning change is that one, so. And then subsurface wastewater disposal rules, Sid?
Yep, I've just got it in my memo. for discussion, you might remember, I don't know which one you want to address first, but the septic ordinance, as you remember last
So
month,
this is both?
I have them both here for
That's for-
discussion. Yep,
Well, this
zoning boundary
this bullet
changes,
is for both of those?
yes, zoning
Okay.
boundary changes, and also the revisions to the subsurface wastewater disposal.
So the first one is the boundary changes on the, and can you give me your assessment? We discussed this, that in fact the gravel pit, according to the thing, is outside the boundary of the watershed.
From any history that I've had concerning this has been under discussion for a long time. I know that there have been some proposed property exchanges over the years. I think the last one that was actively occurred was over 10 years ago, but the Lake Auburn Watershed Protection Commission was trying to work out an arrangement where we could do a land exchange to get some property that was down closer to the lake, and there were some actual discussions at that time. If that land exchange took place, then there would actually be some effort made to actually facilitate some rezoning of that pit. It never occurred, but it was discussed as far back as 10 years. My experience with that particular piece of property, and I know it's referenced in the FB environmental report that went to the city and was reviewed. And prior to that, I know that from my long history of being in Auburn and Lewiston and now at the Water District, that there was an extensive amount of groundwater analysis done because of those adjacent landfills. And it was pretty widely known that from results of all the monitoring that had been done around those wells, it's not necessarily intuitive, but the results did show that any groundwater trace that was taken from those wells was not headed towards the lake. It was actually headed back towards eventually the Androscoggin River. So when this proposal came up, there's a lot of changes that are on the board and to be slated for things to be done around the lake. And this particular one was not one that I saw as being a particular hazard. I was, hearing that letter today, I was not aware of a recent study that had been done that showed otherwise. That I had not seen that, so that was new to me. But based upon my history and what I know of that particular location, I do not think that anything that happens in that pit is going to create a hazard for the lake. Of course, it depends upon what ultimately gets proposed, and that will be brought forward on an individual basis for review by the planning board and ultimately to our office for review to see if there is any potential danger to the lake. Obviously, we're not going to want something to go in there that's going to either discharge something to the lake or otherwise be a hazard to it. But based upon its face value, I myself, and I know we've talked about it here, did not see where that was going to be a particular issue as long as it's monitored properly.
I had a couple questions. I read Nira Douglas's editorial. Can we, as staff, can you confirm with City of Auburn planning to make sure that land is indeed all owned by the City of Auburn? I remember, the dumps and all that stuff growing up when I was young. I'm pretty sure those parcels are not part of the parcels that can even be developed if the city owns them. But I want the confirmation on that if we can get that.
The city owned?
The city owns the dumps that was in this
the
discussion.
landfills. Okay,
Yeah, the
I thought you
landfills.
meant a pit. Okay, the
No,
adjacent landfills.
Yeah, so there's the
Yeah,
sand pit area, and then there's the dump area.
Right.
So we just want to clarify that, because if the city doesn't own everything that is a pollution concern, then that's going to be something that the Watershed Protection Commission is going to want to bring up. And we need, as half of that organization, we need to send as trustees our opinion in that matter. They are meeting on the 23rd of this month to discuss the septic ordinance. And that's something else, too, that we need to propose. Some sort of language So if that discussion can be made at some point during this meeting, that would be great, but.
Well, that's the second half of this
Okay.
bullet is the septic,
septic.
but I wanted to address each one separately.
Yeah. So and then my biggest concern is, if we're supporting the data from the city of Auburn in the study, which I support the data, and I think a lot of you guys do. Is there going to be a consultant or some expert opinion that gives us some sort of alternative ideas?
Well, if in our authority is the protection of the lake. So if this ordinance changes the boundary, do we still have authority? We still have authority over the protection, so we can still have say in what happens and what goes into that, and anything that goes in there is still.
So our bylaws are already set up,
Yeah.
but the Watershed Protection Commission can act on those bylaws
Mm-hmm.
if there's something that's going to pollute the lake. And they'll
So-
send a recommendation to us.
The process is gonna be, anybody that wants to develop that parcel is gonna submit, there's a whole process that they've gotta go through.
Right.
And they've gotta.
Site plan review. via
All
the
of that
planning
stuff,
board.
and there's all environmental work that's gotta get done for that.
Yeah.
So,
So Dan, your reference to you use the word dump and landfill. What you're talking about specifically is the landfill next to this Auburn Public Works on Grace Lawn Road that has a ball field on top of it. Is that what you're referring
There's
to?
one across the street.
There are actually three different.
Is there one across the street too? I know
Yeah.
the gravel pits over
See
there.
all the
The one you references with the ball fields, that's a attenuation landfill where just raw garbage was dumped for many years.
Right.
That has no liner on the bottom of it. Across the street on the lakeside, there was an old asbestos dump, and there was also what used to be a metal dump. Those are not part of the pit per se, and yes, those are owned by the city of Auburn, those properties.
Thank you.
And both of those on the lakeside do have a clay liner and a monitoring.
That's good. Impervious clay liner. That's
Right.
good.
I have a question.
yeah,
Question, comment. So Neria's letter today was.
I'm sorry, can you state your name
Oh,
and where
yes,
you
I
live,
forgot.
please?
Susan Brown. I'm at 152 Dillingham, so I'm not directly in. I don't live on the lake. But there's discrepancies. The $100,000 beautiful study that was done says over and over again, and it's in many different areas, but especially in its synopsis, that only low impact density type projects should happen. And it tells the city of Auburn to not change watershed areas. It says don't do it. It recognizes what a valuable resource we have and what Mr. Hazelton has taken care of. I've lived in Auburn now 28 years, and I always felt proud that our city water was there, and we took care of it so that we could drink it. Did we want to sometimes take a dive in there when it was July and it was hot? Yeah, but we couldn't. I know you don't like when I say things like that, but that's just it. My family drinks that water in their home. I've paid the water bill when I lived in the city. I don't live in the city any longer. For the city water drinkers to pay these extra amounts that this water filtration, which I know you've got that lower in your agenda, so I'm going there right now. I guess I'm spreading out. But for one thing, those maps that Eric Cousins showed us, that show, he has two hot spots, Mr. Milks. He has two hot spots there, and he talks about, oh, well, maybe we need to do this, or maybe we'll need to do that. But it's very abstract. It's very abstract when he talks about, well, maybe they'll have to do this. And then they talked about a road they want to put in. Once you put a road in, you've got the runoff from the road, and that's going to go in. That's going to go into the lake. Yeah, I'm going everywhere because this is emotional, because this is the water supply. Across the country, lakes are drying up, rivers are drying up, the milfoil is taking over the lakes, and there are no lakes left. And then property owners that have never even been able to touch it, may have lived there for 50 years, I'm sorry, I'm boring you, but have lived there for all those years, and now the lake that's out there that we walk along on those wonderful paths, is gone. It's dead. It will pull all of our values down. Not only, are the taxpayers going to have, are the water drinkers and toilet flushers going to have to pay for that water very dearly, but the whole lake will be an eyesore if it dies. Your septic ideas seem amazing. They're wonderful. Put some more trails in at the bottom of the lake there. And put a modified low-density structure maybe along Grace Lawn. But to put a factory like they talked about, and the other thing that's seems very, what's the word? Eric suggests that they're going to build and develop from the base of the pit, that they're not going to change the topography, so that they're not going to change the water flow directions, because they're going to develop from the bottom of the pit. What are they going to put there? Dirt bike races? What are they going to put there?
Why are you asking me?
Because you are in charge of this department right here.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I've let you have your speak. I'm not the enemy. I drink the water too. I'm not. You're making suggestions that no one's suggesting.
All right. I feel.
I don't know what
enemy
we're talking about.
guys.
The boundary of the watershed, which is Mr. Hazelton has said that it's not in the watershed. That's.
I'm talking about the maps that Eric showed us, and you were at those meetings.
I understand, but why? I'm not the enemy. I drink the water too. My family has been raised on this water. Okay.
And you think,
so
and
you think
told
somehow
us
I'm in
that
favor
you
of?
think that if we do this, if we do all these changes, that the water's going to be better. You said that. I heard you say it.
What
that
did
the
I say?
water's going to be better. We need the filtration.
I have not lobbied for filtration at all.
Yeah, you have. You said that at the meeting.
You're wrong.
I heard
Steve,
you say it.
everything I'm hearing is a planning board function.
It's this speculation that all this bad stuff is going to happen. I'm not in favor of changing of a filtration plant. That's not
Well,
true.
that's good to hear you say. Because
I have not said it before. I have not
Oh,
said filtration.
I know, I'm sorry, you're right. You talked about the drainage, all the new drainage they're gonna put in is gonna make the water better. You talked about the drainage on the property.
So does anybody else have anything to say?
I do.
Yes.
Okay,
And I'm sorry, your name, please?
My name is Margaret Volok. I live on North Shore Drive. My concern is that there is the hydrologic study. It's from 1993. And I just think we're taking a part of the watershed, we're changing the line, which I heard was on the basis of topography. I'm assuming when any development goes in there, the topography is going to change. So anyway, I looked up that water, the last survey that was done in 1993, and I just want to read you the last sentence from, this is just the abstract. However, correlations between the bedrock fracture analysis and the geophysical survey illustrate that there is a potential for contamination of Lake Auburn via the bedrock aquifer. Okay, that's why I feel that we should, if we're going to realign the watershed line, I think we should have a hydrologic study done. Because I think basing it on topography changes. That's all I have to say.
Peter Dingley, 1017 Summer Street. You say you're not even thinking about a filtration plant? That's what you just stated?
Yeah. Go ahead. What do you have to say?
Why is it bonding for filtration plant design in your business?
I said I'm not the one that is suggesting that we put a filtration in. We have brought
Who
up.
is?
We are
Somebody
talking about.
is.
Look, we have put that in the agenda, which this is the first time any of you have ever been to a meeting. We've been doing this meeting. I've
Because
been
we
here for
never
2
knew
years.
about it.
It's public. It's public knowledge. It's
We
public
should have been
knowledge.
sent letters a long time ago as to what you guys
We are
were
so that
proposing.
is a contingency plan in case something happens. We haven't. There's no bonding out there. We have not done anything.
You haven't, but you're thinking about it. You're talking about it.
Of course, we're thinking about it. We're responsible for the protection of the water. That's right.
We don't want a filtration plant. We want the water to stay
That's
clean
right.
the way it is.
But it's a waiver. What if they say the stuff that happens in the something happens and we lose our filtration, we have to put a filter
The
plan
only
in.
way that's gonna happen if you change the zoning, right?
No.
And put in a whole bunch of homes and houses.
It could happen even
Could
without.
happen, yeah.
It could.
Yes.
The rate's been going downhill for a
It
long
was been
time.
holding it to go down.
More likely.
I know, it's
Slippery slope, it's not doing what
What's that?
City plan.
Looking at getting
Start thinking about it.
So,
But we
had
have
it.
to, hasn't been found that you can't
we
bring
could
people
take
in.
advantage of.
I don't think it's responsible to continue going forward without having a plan in place. If you get the waiver pulled and you don't have anything ready to go, then you gotta scramble to get all these things set in motion and lined up. Have a plan, filtration plan drawn up at probably double or triple the cost in a rush. It's more or less getting them ready in case we need them. It's not, we don't wanna use them. I wanna use the waivers as long as we can, just like everybody else in this room. But just as some of the members of the audience mentioned, it's been going in the wrong direction for years. And it's not maybe anything we've done in Auburn, so.
That is an agenda item later on,
You have a plan.
that there will be some discussion on it, so.
Yeah.
So we gotta, anybody else wanna talk about the changing of the zone?
Yeah, I'm Fred Holler, 352 West Auburn Road. You're not the enemy, we understand that. You're part of the big picture, and it's a very important part of the big picture. And the big picture is that I think a lot of us are concerned about the push that's going on for rezoning the whole city of Auburn, including the water district. And I don't think the public has been properly informed of what the plan is. I know there's a comprehensive plan, but they keep changing it, but they don't like the one they've got, so they come up with another comprehensive plan. And I don't think it's anything to do with you guys. I think you do have to be prepared for all contingencies. But you're just part of the picture that there's too much rapid push to rezone the city of Auburn and affect the quality of life, affect the nature of our city. We like the rural atmosphere. We know we have to have some low-income housing, and that isn't what this is all about either. It's about housing, it's about development at any cost. And there are a lot of people who have self-interest in this situation. And that's what's really bugging us. We want the whole system to get a little more upfront. We have the sense that there's a lot of sub-rosa stuff going on around here. And we'd like things to be a lot more open than they are. There's just, we're going nuts, going to planning meetings, coming to the water district meetings, going to city council meetings. Why doesn't someone just open up to the public and give us a good shot at what's going on? We've defeated the strip development so far, but we have a different city council now. The strip development would have redeveloped 1,400 acres of roadside land and then raised the taxes on the people who live there. I mean, there's just a lot going on, and we aren't included. We don't feel when we go to these meetings that people listen to us, and we're frustrated. So I recommend that you proceed a little slower, because we're not trusting people now. We're not trusting the system now. That's all I'm saying. Let's all think together and let's all work together. And I think that especially the city council's pushing us around a little bit. And I'm very concerned about the rudeness that I've seen at the city council. It's awful. I mean, when you're going to throw somebody out because they spoke twice, that's just terrible. You got to get control here. And if there's a lot of undercurrent, other agendas that we don't know about, that's where we are. We wonder if there is. All we want is more openness. Thank you.
Steve, I got a question for Sid and Mike. Is there going to be a consultant available at this workshop on the 23rd on behalf of the city of Lewiston? Because obviously we've never hired a consultant here to look at the findings with a city study. But I mean, for me, I'm not a smoke and mirrors type guy. If the engineering and it's a stamp of approval on a plan that says we can do this, we can do that, I'm okay with that. but if there's some sort of rebuttal consultant, do you know, Sid?
For the 23rd workshop for the commission,
Are we gonna get new information, or?
there's gonna be, that's gonna be an open workshop, and the public is welcome to attend. And we're gonna be discussing the septic ordinance.
Yeah,
So-
I mean, I get that, but the concern in this room is that it's not believable or something. So if it's not believable, we need some data, because we with the city of Lewiston put together the Watershed Protection Commission in the 90s. We're half consulting to them. The other half is the City of Lewiston Water Division. So if we don't give them a report and findings for this meeting on the 23rd, you know, who's to say that someone's going to convince the commission that this is hocus pocus? I mean, this is engineered study, right? Other than that,
That's going to be a chance, and I encourage everyone that wants to attend. There is going to be a workshop. It's going to be right here on March 23rd. It's a workshop for the Lake Auburn Watershed Protection Commission to consider specifically this septic ordinance, and that will be a perfect chance to get everything you want to say about that out in the open. I mean, we're certainly doing it here, but that's going to be another opportunity. I think the commission's going to have a chance to weigh in on this and make a recommendation.
And I respect what you said, sir. We've had this meeting, they're all public meetings, everybody's been invited, and since I've been coming here, this is the first time we've ever had anybody come to this meeting. So I am going to disagree that things aren't being done in the public, because they are, and people don't participate. And now when something comes up that people are interested in, now we're doing everything under, it's all public domain. 100% of this, we've been doing everything in the public. So and I am a citizen of this city. I have lived here for over 20 years. I have paid my bills, I've paid my taxes, my kids went to the public schools here. I've drank the water the whole time I've been here. I don't want dirty water either. And there's a feeling that somehow that I'm representing I want dirty water all over the place, and that's not the case. And I don't know if people are nodding that I do. You think I do want dirty water? Oh, I mean, okay, I don't know. I can't tell because I only see nodding in your eyes. So it's not. And to answer your question, you had mentioned something earlier that I don't think it's an absolute either or. It's only one way of doing this. And if we don't have these discussions where we look at new ordinances and look at new ways of doing things, because you mentioned 1993, that was what the septic system design was that is currently in place. I just replaced one at my camp on our lake with an EnviroSeptic that is 50 times better than the one that we had in it from before. So there are better systems and better technology out there that will help improve the lake. So it's not like just because we're doing this, then that means this. So, yes.
Yeah, so I ditto to Dan. I would love to see, you can get a bunch of us, you've already heard all of us, especially. And so it would be great for the meeting to get some experts to look at that 93, some geological experts and stuff, and to get that background. Because as a geology major, I know about the fractures in the granite, and I studied that. And so it's very possible that things could go through. So
that would be on the city side, though.
That would be on the city side, but for this meeting, so that would be nice. And I think that we have that sense too, like all of a sudden now there's a meeting next month, the 21st, and then the next one is going to be the next Monday. And so it's like it's been going bang, 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 bang. And people don't have a time to regroup. Somebody told me it's like trying to keep up with the city council, it's like trying to drink out of a fire hose. So, and that's what happens when things are going like this, that people get panicked and they're going, hey, what's going on? And you get people's response like it is now. But I think that Dan had a great idea about getting some experts out there and doing the studies. And what Dr. Holler said about slowing down, it doesn't have to be done tomorrow. It does not have to be done tomorrow. And I totally agree with the new septic designs. I mean, I think those are great. But it would be nice to have better, more experts to come in. Somebody brought the soils expert in. So that's, I agree with you, Dan. We need more experts. We need to hear more studies instead of trying to race to the finish without knowing what's going on and what are those new studies, as you mentioned, with the septic. You know, if that's come out, we can do a lot more. Doesn't have to happen right now.
So Dan, who do you think, you referred her, this is a city issue she's talking about, not our issue.
Yeah,
And so who do you think would be good for a point person for her to talk to first? City councilor, city manager?
Well, I think this is a planning board, because any kind of development out of that pit is gonna go to site plan review at the planning board level. So, you know, them themselves are gonna have to present their plan, and then if there's any kind of consultant that has a problem with that, then typically the planning board, I know Mr. Whiting is here, he's been on the planning board forever. Maybe you could explain that process to these folks.
Well, I'm on the city council now, and I make a few points about the land that's scheduled for rezoning on Graceland. I've walked the site with a retired attorney who also owns a woodlot. The topography has changed radically since the last study, which was 2007. The DEP report said that there were flows to the north, and of course from the city lot, no question, but to the north, as identified by those testing wells. But in any event, there's quite a bit of land along the lake, which is owned by the Lake Auburn Watershed Protection Commission. There's about 79 acres that's owned by JIG Aggregates. There's about 26.5 acres that is owned by the city. And then there's a funny little piece that extends, I never knew this until I looked at the city assessment records that show a little neck of land that's owned by CM, Central Maine Community College, that extends behind St. Dom's and behind the capped dumps and so on and so forth. But you're right about the planning board. The planning board would review anything that happens there. But first, the city council has to act on the rezoning. I think there's sufficient questions that they shouldn't act right away. I think there needs to be some more investigation of what's going on there, particularly in light of the DEP information that came out, as well as questions around the ledge, which does appear to allow flows to the east and the west of the ledge around the land and into the lake, which could be problematic. So there's a number of questions that need to be answered about that. But in terms of planning board, you're right, there would be, assuming it got rezoned, it would then be subject to application by a developer to do a plan, which they'd have to bring to a public hearing, and the public could look at it and ask questions and so on and so forth. So if that helps,
So,
happy to help.
To move off this agenda, Sid, is there something specific you're asking us? Do you want us to maybe get together in your office, a couple of trustees, to send some advice to the commission for the 23rd, or what exactly? I mean, since this is really not in our purview, what do you want us to do with this?
Well, at the last meeting I had, last trustee meeting we had last month, I asked this board to have an opinion on this issue, because we are the water district, we are responsible for delivering clean water, and I think it's important, I think the public deserves to know how the water district stands on these issues. The zoning and also the subsurface wastewater amendments that are being proposed. I think the public deserves to know what the trustees think about it, what they endorse or don't endorse.
So we talked about this at the last meeting, and then we went to a city ordinance workshop on February 16th. And we listened to the soil scientist, the site evaluator. I mean, other than getting that information from those experts, we're listening to some public opinion and testimony. I mean, other than that, I mean, I'm still, unless some consultant says that it's going to do something majorly wrong, I'm still at the point where I just need to send a recommendation to the commission as duly appointed that we are still in favor of the study. I mean, and that's my opinion. So if you need a motion to move, I'll make that motion. I'll make a motion that as trustees, having two discussions at two separate meetings, having been to the workshop and listened to the experts, I am in favor of new septic systems, and I think that's what the commission is going to be talking about, to ensure that we have better technology for our lake, to protect the lake. I don't know if you got all that, Tanya, but she's writing it.
In favor of new septic systems to ensure better technology for the lake?
You need a motion. You're asking him a question.
Yeah, I just made a motion. We'll need a second.
I mean, I'd certainly second it. I think everything what he said though before, already what we've talked about, we don't need that. We don't have to go beyond. If he's saying that the question about the zoning boundary, not.
I don't think that's up in the purview of the commission, is it? The discussion is just the septic?
It's just septic?
No, it's both.
Oh, at the commission as well?
No,
On the 23rd?
no, I'm talking about what we're here for right here today, right now.
This is the two subjects on this thing.
Yeah.
He wants our opinion on the changing of the zoning in the gravel pit, based on the way that the study says. Are we in favor of changing the zoning of the gravel so that it's not in the Lake Auburn watershed?
Yeah, I'm definitely in favor of that. So someone wants to second the motion?
No, I've seconded.
Well, no, your first motion was about the septic ordinance.
Well, then I'll
There's two separate things. We're gonna do the gravel pit right now, the changing of the zoning of the gravel pit.
Okay.
Or do we support the changing of the zoning of the gravel pit?
We have a motion on the floor about the septic systems.
Yeah, why don't we just finish that one up first?
All right, well, we haven't had a discussion about that, and everyone's gonna wanna talk about that too.
Okay.
Isn't that what we talked about?
No,
That's the agenda.
no.
So we haven't even talked about the septic ordinance.
I'll
yet.
withdraw my motion.
We're talking about the gravel pit.
Okay, I'll withdraw my motion. And I'll make a motion to send a favorable recommendation to the commission regarding the rezoning of the gravel pits, unless they have a consultant that says otherwise.
Wait a minute, you're looking for the approval of, to the commission.
We're just, as trustees, we're just sending a favorable recommendation
It's all.
that the city did their due diligence in the study.
We trust what they're.
We
their
trust
studies
what the
say.
city, what
And
the
pay
science
those.
says.
Right.
Despite the
Two.
questions to the report? You're going
Yes.
to trust that despite the questions
Yes.
that Mr. Whiting brought up, that letters have brought up, despite those questions?
It's gonna be a planning board issue.
Right, there's a,
Well, no, if you're the water, you just said, they like to hear from you. You said they like to hear from you, they want to hear from you.
Right, we're only sending a recommendation to the commission.
Well, yeah,
We're not,
sending-
we're not the authority.
So
The
what's
city-
your
To the
purpose?
commission
It's a
as the
city
other
ordinance.
half of
Isn't your purpose the
the
water?
Lewiston and as the Auburn half of that commission. From our perspective, that's our point of view, I think is what.
May I make one sentence suggestion? The city council will vote on the second reading of the change to the zoning on Monday. I think most of the people in this room will be happy if this body suggests delaying the second vote on the changing of the zoning until further study can be done, until the public is better informed about the issues. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll stand with my motion. We don't have the purview to do that. We can only let the commission know what we think.
The commission's not meeting until the second reading's already been done.
Correct.
That makes no sense.
I think it's time to come out in favor of this or not, and that's it. I wouldn't recommend to anyone else.
Say that again, Sid?
I personally don't think it's appropriate to recommend this to the Lake Auburn Watershed Protection Commission because, as this gentleman said, there was a second reading Monday. So, I mean, whether that goes through or not, it's gonna be a moot point if we give something to the commission to consider. I mean, I don't see the value in that.
My position is the dumps that are there are already there. That has nothing to do with the gravel pit. Those dumps are already there. If any of the pollution that's happening is happening from the dumps, not from the gravel pit. And I think if you rezone so that the gravel pit could be used for something productive, that opens up a lot of options from the city to go and do testing and address these things and do it in the process of development. To see, but the dumps are already there. I didn't put the dumps there. You're mad at me, I know, but I didn't put the dump there. When I moved here, the dumps were already there.
They were there when I moved here too.
Right.
I'm not
So-
mad at you,
Well,
but I just don't understand when we see
The gravel pit is different than the dumps. I
Right.
think the gravel pit could be
We're talking
done
about
in an environmentally safe way.
Aren't we talking about both?
No, the dumps are the dumps. We're not gonna build anything on the dumps, I don't
All
think.
right, okay, so anyway.
I'm talking about taking the gravel pit and making an intelligent decision as a city. What do we want to do with the gravel pit? Personally, I'd rather have something besides a gravel pit. If they can do something that's environmentally safe and benefits the city, and without hurting the water, which I don't care about. This is the water department. This is the water department. We have a regular meeting.
District.
Water district.
But why not find out about those areas in question before you say you're approving it? Because there are areas of question, it was pointed out at all.
It's the dumps. We're not doing anything with
No,
the
no,
dumps.
no, it's not the dumps. It's from the gravel pit that there's the question. Where those two
Yes.
water spots that were the hot spots.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you stated, you guys are looking out for the best way possible to keep our water clean. I think it is your responsibility to pull back and say, wait a minute, to make sure that the findings are true and accurate, and we have somebody that knows geology and can confirm 100% that none of the leakage is going to get into the drinking water. I agree with this group that we should pull back and wait to make sure all the I's are dotted and all the T's are crossed. And I think it is your responsibility to send that message that you would like this postponed until all the questions can be answered. That's doing due diligence.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Sid's asking for whether or not we support the moving of the boundary in the gravel pit. And therefore allowing whoever would like to put proposals in to potentially improve the gravel pit. And all of the things that would go along with that, which are all the environmental studies and everything else that would go along with that, before you could do anything in the gravel pit.
So moved. Now we need a second.
Can you restate that, please, Mr. Rokes?
The motion is, are we approving the moving of the boundary to exclude the gravel pit from the lake as the environmental study shows and as the superintendent agrees it's not in the watershed?
Could you clarify that motion? I'm sorry, I didn't understand it.
Excuse me.
Johnny's going to read it back.
To approve moving the boundary.
Approve whether or not we agree whether or not we support the moving of the boundary as the city council has voted on.
That's amazing.
And if that's Steve's motion, I'll second it.
Basically, the motion is, do we support the moving of the boundary the way the city council has voted? To allow, would allow improvement of the gravel pit.
Fair enough.
That's an important part of it.
Yes.
Because the thing is, any development that goes in there, we can't have the topography on the, toward the lake, which was the most affected, probably that we're most concerned about, is that which nearest the lake. Can't afford to have that topography changed or harmed in any way that it changes the direction of the flow of the water from that part of that rezoned part that we take out of the watershed. That part can't be worked on by construction, via any kind of construction, to change the movement of where the water might go, especially in that section right there, the hot spots, toward the lake. That's my concern right there.
So
I'm not concerned, the big
I would
part of it,
add
I'm
to
not,
that.
but the part that's nearest the lake, I'm concerned about that, that we mess with that, we may mess with the direction of the
So
water,
I'd add
and it
to
may
that.
start going toward the lake, and it may
I'd add
take
to-
everything toward the lake.
Yes, I'd add to that, that our recommendation is, in addition, that before any development happened to the gravel pit, that the city would do geological and further testing and studies with any of the, before allowing any development of the gravel pit. That's what we recommend.
Much better.
Is that better?
That is better, so, thank you.
I'm sorry about my.
No, it's good. Yes,
I
so our recommendation is, we'd like
a hot
to
topic
see,
with me.
I'd like to see improvement of the gravel pit.
And I'll
from the
second
gravel
that
pit.
amended motion.
That's an amendment.
Right?
Okay.
From
But now, before they develop it, we'd like to see the city, since if that's this is the city moving that, and I will support this as a city councilor, that I would expect this would be done, that we would do the environmental, the geological due diligence to make sure that any development does not affect the lake in any adverse way.
I just have one more thing, and I bet it's planning board, I bet it's council, but the other thing that just keeps roiling through my brain is, because this change that wants to be made is to make it a commercial business zone. Why, in God's name, aren't we going to our traditional commercial zones for that type of development? Why? So I'm just gonna stop.
Well, isn't it, it's commercial, I mean, right now, I mean, you have trucks in and out
It
of
is,
there,
and that was
in and
a
out,
poor-
in and out,
yes,
digging
and that was a
and
poor
changing
use,
things.
wasn't it? That wasn't the best use of that
Right,
land.
so, but from what I saw when Eric Cousins did his,
Yeah.
Right.
he showed, the rain gardens and he showed where it was gonna be a net improvement. It could be a net
I
improvement.
missed that meeting.
And that's where, again, that's
Right,
what I
it would
was
actually make
getting
an
at.
improvement to that area rather than, and I think
When
that's what
when you quote
LID
me as
has.
saying improvements, that's what I mean. I don't think that change is necessarily bad, but I think we can improve this and make it a better situation.
The zoning change to improve it rather than worsen it.
Right, but he was mentioning what's the word I want? A small factory, a small.
I can tell you that if a factory gets put in front of me as a city council, I will not vote for a factory in that spot.
They talked about it like whatever square foot in factory.
I think the zoning would
I don't
possibly,
think you're,
could,
I've heard housing.
yeah.
I've heard,
And
a nice little design, some of the things that I've heard are, designed neighborhood type things like you see in other towns, like in Falmouth and those types of things, which would be good.
That land is actually ag zone, ag natural protection. I know somebody just said it was commercial or something.
Well, no,
but it's
I'm just
not.
saying it sure looks, I mean, gosh, you
I
see
know,
the
that's
trucks
all I
going
asked
in and
about
out of
that.
there every
You can do
day.
a gravel pit with permission from the planning board anywhere you darn well want,
Yeah.
even in an ag zone, and that's a planning board decision. So, but it is still ag zone.
It's permitted in the ag zone.
So do we have to vote on the
Permitted
amendment
anywhere.
first?
Yes.
Yeah.
So
So,
I'll
are you
call
calling
a
a question? Okay. All in favor of the amendment?
The amendment?
Yep.
Amen.
Okay. Now we're moved now to the original motion.
Any more discussion on that?
Right, any more discussion? No, okay, all in favor?
Could it be read back again?
Can you repeat that original?
So the original motion is to support the way city council has voted, allowing improvement to
The changing of the boundary of
moving the boundary,
the boundary of the watershed,
the way city council has voted.
to change the zoning.
Right, but then you added something to that.
The amendment.
The amendments, yeah,
Okay.
already been voted on, so
And the
now.
amendment was already approved, okay. They would have
So
a
then
more
you have
study.
Geologic studies
Okay.
if development to occur in the gravel pit.
Pretty much, yeah.
Environmental.
So
That's our recommendation. It's not a binding, it's just that we recommend you continue to do studies on what's going on. Okay, all in favor? All right, now we're on the septic. The new septic design. The new septic ordinance that is being proposed. And was, at the last month's meeting, it was what was presented. At the last, I think everybody here was there. So that's the.
A motion the trustees support the revisions to the subsurface wastewater disposal rules, and also send that recommendation to the commission as well.
We need a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Discussion.
Septic.
Okay, great,
Septic's good.
all right, excellent. All in favor?
Wait, can we have some, well, no, I'd like some discussion around this too. As superintendent, I've gotta say, I am not in favor of this. I don't think, I've heard every other word concerning this report is science. We're basing it on science, science, science. I really think we've only heard half of the science we need to hear concerning this issue, because designing a better septic system is one thing, and who's going to argue with that? Of course you want a better septic system, and I'm not going to argue that what's been presented might be a better septic design than the one we have, but let's be real about what this is. The existing watershed overlay ordinance is the cornerstone of our lake protection efforts, and I think adopting a new septic standard, which is going to allow importing. Right now, you can't. We have a 36-inch separation requirement from the surface to the bottom of the leach field. You cannot, in the current ordinance, you cannot bring in 3 feet of fill. You can't import fill in order to get that. This new standard is going to allow that to happen. So it is going to open up more development within the watershed, and that is the half of the science we have not heard. And I'm extremely uncomfortable thinking that this could go forward without knowing how much more phosphorus, nitrogen, pathogens, pharmaceuticals, PFAS, everything else could be added to the watershed if 100 new homes are added. That's the other half of the science that keeps getting ignored and we have not heard. I need to hear that. What's going to be the net increase in runoff of all those things to the lake if there are 100 new homes put in because we've relaxed the septic standards? And not only that, we've been, in some of the previous discussions we've had about this, and as outlined in the report, we need to work closer with the neighboring towns to our north that are still part of that watershed to tighten up some of their development restrictions and get them to work with us to also help not pollute the lake anymore. What kind of message are we sending to those neighboring towns if we're relaxing our standards to add 100 new homes to the watershed and we're turning around and telling Turner not to develop their land? How is, I don't know what credibility we can have moving forward if we're going to relax our own standards and expect the other towns to follow suit.
Sid, a couple clarifications. we're not relaxing the standards because the city
We
is
most certainly
already,
are.
the city has already approved the low impact development standards and the new phosphorus control plans.
That's wonderful, that's great.
And
For new, that's
we're,
great.
we're already discussing the bylaws that we're going to take these new ordinances that are much better for our lake, according to those stamped engineers, and we're going to apply those to the upper watershed. We're going to ask Minot, Hebron, Buckfield, and Turner to adopt these, and that's the power of this district, is to update our bylaws to allow the LawPEC to require those to be done. If they don't do that voluntarily, then we will impose that regulation. We will
But that's-
create our own ordinance.
By the
and
same
that's
token,
the power
that's,
that we
that's
have.
not what's, that is not what's on the table now either. You know, the city gave this, the city's trying to pass this.
So
Anything regarding the outer
Can I finish,
watershed
Sid?
is
Can I
not
finish,
even
please?
part of
Sid,
what
may I
this
finish,
discussion
please? It's a
If you let me
package deal.
finish, I'll let you finish.
It's a package deal. You have
What?
low impact development, you
Yep.
have updated phosphorus control plan,
Great.
you have upper watershed ordinances, and you have a revised septic ordinance. It's all these things together. And unless you get some sort of consultant in your back pocket, I would appreciate knowing what is wrong with that.
I'd like to know from the existing consultant how much more pollution these homes are gonna create. And
There's,
that-
you're, again, it's two different things. You're arguing something that isn't proposed. There's no proposals for additional, you're quoting a study that says you could potentially put, but no one's proposing houses in, there's 200 septic systems currently in the watershed, thereabouts.
30
that
years
are-
old.
That are inferior to what is existing now.
And if those are gonna get replaced, it's great. Have low impact development standards to replace them.
Thank you.
Of course, that's good.
So that's what we're discussing.
That's what we're
Wait
discussing.
a
Is there
second.
public comment available?
You know, Dan, you just said we could build more low-impact housing there. You just finished saying that.
I'm
You said it was
saying the
one big
houses that
package.
would be built have to be built under a different standard.
But according to the study, it says, we recommend that the city of Auburn not seek to ease the current resource protection zoning or consider rezoning portions of the watershed for increased density.
We're not talking zoning for new houses, we're just talking existing lots that could build.
That you already could build right this second on.
Right, no, we're not adding any more zoning that,
And what's the acreage in the watershed that you could have for rebuilding right now? In the rural, it's at 3 or 5 acres.
rural residential is
I think it's
250
5.
feet of road frontage. And
I think it's
I
5.
thought
5 acres.
they moved it up to from 3 to 5 acres, I think, did
So,
they?
so you would have one low-impact house on 5 acres.
Right,
If
and
they
this
have
is
the road
something,
frontage.
this is something the planning board would be.
Right,
You know,
if-
you have to
if
get a
that was
building
proposed.
permit.
Well, I'm just saying, you're the one who said that we have low-impact housing, and Sid said, well, that's having more houses is going to affect the quality of the lake. And I'm just quoting the lake
Right.
study.
So the new house and that footprint, that phosphorus loading to the lake is going to be addressed by the other new ordinances that the city is, and I think they've already approved it, right? The phosphorus and the low impact development? Wasn't that approved already? Or is there a second reading on that? I'm not sure.
I'm not sure.
I think it was.
I think that's all part of the second reading.
Yeah, my comment would be, I think everybody's in favor of the changed standards for septic systems that are replacement systems.
Right.
But there has been inadequate attention and scrutiny of the potential, avalanche of lots that will be developed by changing the septic ordinance. And there are a number of people on your board who have conflicts and own a lot of land in the watershed protection area, which is problematic from a legal standpoint. So I caution this board, and I caution the city council, and I caution anybody who will listen, that they need to pay close attention to that issue as Sid raised. Thank you.
I don't have any land in the watershed.
Mine's
I drink
developed,
the
I have
water.
my house.
I drink the water.
The land I own, I have Taylor Pond watershed in fact.
Yeah, so Rick, I'm not sure where you're getting your data, but no one has anything to gain out here. He's got a postage stamp in the watershed. My land is already fully developed with the road frontage. He's got Taylor Pond watershed in his backyard, so it wouldn't help him at all. Other than that, no one else owns
How about
land
city
here.
water?
I mean, enough misinformation, please.
No, that's the Lake Auburn.
Anyway, I'll call the question.
Okay. Yeah.
Rex Roads, Lakeshore Drive, Auburn. And may I just say, I sense you're exasperated and you're defensive about all this. And I feel like we've been paying attention to this issue for a very long time, probably through the Sun Journal. And in 2020, there was a study done. And, I was kind of like, what's it going to show? Well, it showed clearly, $100,000 for the experts to recommend don't develop anything in this wetland or watershed area. So I haven't been attending meetings, up until recently, last month or so, because I thought the study was done. Who would ignore the study? That just seems foolish. And little do I know, behind the scenes, kind of the locomotive is also chugging along, ignoring what was in that report, ignoring what the lady whose name escapes me, the Bates professor, who has been studying. Holly Ewing has been studying the lake for years, monitoring it, with her students. And she stood up at one of the meetings and said, she put it in a report and said, just don't build any more houses. And there's a lot more to building a house than just the septic system. There's a runoff from the driveway, there's impermeable, ground you're putting in, an impermeable house that people wash cars, people have dogs, all of that is extra to just a septic system. We all want better septic systems, but all of that is extra to it. And this issue controls, this and the ag zone issue controls that development. So, I'd be totally in favor of, let's get natural resource zoning put in place so there's no more development. Then you can go ahead and dismiss these other things. But these are the two things that are protecting the lake right now. And it may seem odd. I think it seems odd. We just don't come out and say, well, it should be natural resource, kind of protected land. But that's not what anybody's proposing. They're just proposing dismiss these things, start building houses all over, Androscoggin or Lake Auburn, as well as the rest of the county and parts of the city. And as a sub rosa part of it, it just appears to many of us probably that there's a plan in place, something in motion. People have been appointed to boards who, this kind of, every day I find, oh, he's a realtor. Well, why doesn't he declare that conflict of interest on the city council? So it is something that seems to be going on in the background that's aimed at either enhancing the development potential of certain members of the council, or working with contractors or developers. It just, something smells here, in the whole thing. And I don't consider you my enemy, or anything, but something just doesn't seem right to a lot of people who aren't.
But you're, in the same sense, are you accusing me of working with contractors to develop the lake?
Not you. I don't know anything about you, but there's several members of the council, I believe, who are realtors. They've not declared their conflicts.
The planning board?
Planning board.
Oh, planning board. They've not declared their conflicts. They have a conflict of interest. They should go sit in the audience. That's what the state law requires. But
so is that the council you're talking about?
Planning board.
Oh,
I assume.
So you're been proud.
The city of Auburn has an ethics policy, so if there's something bad going on, we need to get it to them.
It does seem like there is something strange going on.
And I'm sorry you guys are getting the brunt of this, because you can tell that where people are upset because of what's been going on or what not knowing. And I apologize that you guys, anyway, that you guys seem to be getting the brunt of the concern, but that's how people feel. So I have nothing against you, any of you, but I'm just saying that we've got a lot of anxiety pent up about what's been going on.
It just seems like there's some sort of go-go development thing that's just, come about in the last year or two, and the forces behind it are unknown to us, but these two issues control what happens. So your opinion on it that you send to the council is important. Thank you.
And the one thing too, and I think everyone knows this, Lake Auburn is the only public water supply for the cities of Auburn and Lewiston. We don't have some other magic well we can just flip on and have water flow. The Lake Auburn is it. It's been the water supply for the last 150 years. It's incredibly fragile. There is no other source. What would we do if we lost that lake? Most other municipalities have backup water sources. It's rare. We don't have one. We have nothing else. It's incredibly fragile, and I don't think putting in a few more homes is worth the risk of risking your watershed and your water supply. It just doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, the question for us is not whether or not we're developing new homes in the watershed. The question is the technology that was shown to us last month in that meeting that the ordinance for the septic system, is it superior to the existing septic ordinance? That's the question. We're not proposing development, no one's proposed a development to us, and we're the water board. We're the water trustees of, it's two separate questions.
And we're all volunteers.
That's right.
Everybody's a volunteer.
I get paid from the city council, I get big money.
And there's over 180 homes right now in the watershed that have septic systems
That's
between
right.
20 and 30 years old. The sooner, the better.
Well, can you say that that you approve it for existing septic systems that may need to be replaced, but if there were further development, scientific studies would have to be done, and that you can't just have a blanket approval for all of that?
That's where the low impact development, the new phosphorus control plans, the new phosphorus loading calculations, all the other items that the upper watershed ordinances, these are all the other things that are going to have a net gain in watershed protection.
And that's
when
not
they're
something that we control.
None of it's we control. Sid is merely asking us to weigh in on these two issues in front of a bunch of people that are very upset, and we get that.
But I don't think it makes sense to continue to support an ordinance that has an inferior septic technology. As we clearly saw in the last meeting, we're mandating people put septic systems in so it doesn't work the best that it should work. That's how they are designed.
But let's be honest, the existing ordinance we have, it's a 36-inch separation ordinance. Let's face it, that's restricted development in the lake.
Sid, come on.
It has.
2,000 gallons of septic effluent down below my land. People walk these trails. They see the septic farm. In deep gravel aquifer
You found
soils.
a loophole in the
I didn't
system.
find a loophole.
Congratulations.
When we don't have the local ordinance covering all of it, you fall back on the state ordinance, and the state ordinance is up to date. So here's a situation where we won't be putting septic systems in deep gravel aquifer soils anymore. That whole thing was a cover-up by this district years ago, and it should have been changed a long time ago.
Right.
It's ridiculous, Sid.
What is the result of that going to be?
What was the cover-up?
Individual subsurface wastewater disposal systems on everyone's own property away from the lake instead of near the lake in deep gravel aquifer soils.
You found a loophole, Dan. Congratulations.
I didn't find a loophole.
Of course you did.
I purchased a piece of property and the owner said, you have the septic soils. That's all I knew. And I grew up installing septic systems. I didn't realize I had to put it 1,800 feet away from my house, towards the lake.
The existing proposal outlaws that from happening.
One more good thing to approve this. I'm sorry, now I'm
You
getting...
benefited from that.
Benefited?
Of course you did.
This is 2005, before I even knew you guys had some scheme of devaluing land so you could buy it up for the commission.
Okay. All right.
That's what it was. You devalue the property and the commission bought it. It was the same person that did it too. The same person regulated the land and said, no, you can't have a septic system, and then turned around and purchased that land, Sid. The same person, the superintendent of the Auburn Water District.
All right, so listen, so the question is, do we support the septic design as the new septic ordinance? Do we support that? That's the question.
I'll call the question.
All in favor? Opposed?
I can't support it.
I'm sorry, Kevin, I didn't get your vote.
No, I support it.
You support it. 5-1. Okay. That's all we're supporting is the septic ordinance as written. Okay. So we're going to move up the review of the bylaws for the protection of Lake Auburn, which is something that that this board was supposed to do every 5 years, correct?
Correct.
Prior to, folks, prior to us doing it now, when was the last time it was done?
It's never been done.
Okay,
Since
how long?
the inception.
Since the inception, okay? We're reviewing the bylaws for the protection of Lake Auburn. So can you give us a quick update, you and Jason?
I'll give Jason the floor here. But last meeting, he wasn't here at the last meeting, we asked the trustees to look at the document to bring forward any recommendations, but basically all we're looking for is trustee approval to meet with stakeholders. So that'd be the Watershed Protection Commission, the City of Auburn, Protect Lake Auburn. I think it's important that they're involved as well.
Okay.
Mostly technical changes, and that was presented last meeting. That's in the packet, is that correct, Sid? That was in last month's packet?
It was distributed at the last meeting.
So that's public information, is all I'm after. Technical changes, with the exception of the one, I think it can be considered non-technical, that Dan mentioned about limited bodily contact.
And also upper watershed ordinances. That's going to be
And
a
upper
contentious
watershed,
issue. We're hoping that these other municipalities will adopt those ordinances and not just, say, well, forget it, and then we have to act through our legislative authority and create an ordinance that they have to abide by.
And based on the attorney's instructions, it's purely, really just fact findings. We went through the technical issues, finding things that were either outdated or out of place, and have a couple of, after talking to a variety of people, have a couple of items to talk about, and now we engage in discussion. That's the process. So,
okay, thank you.
So how specifically are you going to engage the stakeholders?
We're gonna hold a couple public meetings. We'll be on agenda notices.
How will the public know about this?
So I think the first step before we start public hearings and public notices, like he was describing, I think the first step is we've identified a list of stakeholders. We're going to distribute the draft of changes to all those stakeholders. And that's a public document, as I mentioned. So the first step is to gather feedback, and then at some point we need to go, and I have to bounce this off Jim to see the exact order, because he gave us a very specific process to follow. But at some point we get some initial feedback, and then we either hold meetings directly with them, or public hearing and invite them to it, or go to their board meeting and ask to be on the agenda or in an open public discussion of it. So there are some options and some different directions we can take it. We're just in that first stage here. I think we're doing it the right way, step by step, to make sure that everybody gets their feedback taken into account.
Great. So there's not going to be any public forum with this. It's going to be stakeholder. You're going to be dealing with stakeholders directly, case by case.
Would definitely be a public forum once changes are finalized.
That's follow up.
Proposed.
Once they're proposed, yes.
Thank you. Good. And I think they need to know that too.
Yeah.
But we have the option of amending those bylaws to specifically say, if you're building a new home in the watershed, then we expect it to minimize impact and follow all these standards. Of course, the city ordinance is going to require that, but we can address those concerns. So somebody can fall back on that and say, is this horse farm polluting the lake? Is this 5-bedroom home creating a lake? I don't know if anyone's ever been to my property. It's a big house. It's a 2-family. But we have a rain garden that collects all the roof runoff. We have an engineered pond in the back of our house. We actually capture culvert activity on the North Auburn Road when they redid the culverts. We captured all that. We got upgraded culverts from the city. Stuff goes into our pond, gets treated first. And when we get a torrential rain event, it's just a clean waterfall over that pond. And it happens once or twice a year. Every piece of dog crap that I couldn't pick up goes in my own treatment area. And most of you guys own property in the watershed. And you don't have anything like that probably. You just have a big vegetative buffer. Well, these new homes are going to have treatment areas specifically for their impervious areas.
So you're back into the homes. That's, I think that's what concerns people, you're back into the homes.
These homes.
But no, we can update the bylaws with public input to address your concerns. Absolutely.
Yeah, but so that's, I guess that's what's coming out. You say, oh, we're not doing that, but then, you keep saying, oh, homes, and that's our concern.
Yeah.
You know, and if you read the lake study, I did the math, by the way. It's 3.74 homes that can go into a football field, but they're like only one-bedroom houses. So I don't really think that's what people are thinking
Again,
about.
we're not proposing houses.
No, I know, but Dan
in the
keeps
watershed.
talking.
Well, we want to protect the watershed from the result of the
I
house,
guess he
of
keeps
course.
talking homes.
Yeah.
But Dan can talk homes all he wants, he's not proposing homes. It's not, has anything to do with this board.
Okay, so, on the homes.
Hey, Jason.
No, I'm
The bylaws, okay.
So we're just looking for a motion to continue the movement to
I don't think it needs to be a
stakeholders.
motion either, I think it's just
Just
consensus.
consensus
just
to continue to
consensus.
move on. Everybody all right with that? Good.
Everybody have a chance to read it yet? If not, please read it,
Okay.
front to back. Let us know.
Yeah, that feedback's important.
Okay, now we're, the RFP for legal services,
Water quality update?
water quality update.
Yep, water quality update, just very briefly, the lake is looking really good, as typical for this time of year. Having ice on the lake is a great thing. Limits the sunshine that can get down through and cause problems with algae and other things. The turbidity for the month of February 22 averaged 0.36 as compared to 0.53 for the same time last year. It's a good thing. We might, at the time I wrote this, I thought there might be some opportunity for in-lake sampling. Sometimes if the ice conditions warrant, we can drill holes and take some lake samples, but that's kind of always a tenuous thing. We haven't done it yet, so I'm questioning whether that's going to happen with the weather we're seeing now. That's nothing we have to do for regulatory purposes anyway. I did put in the packet 3 data charts. One of them is, I've got lake elevation, turbidity, and what's the third one? Yeah, lake temp. So you can see the history of those. Everything is trending normally. We don't have anything outside of parameters. So that's something I like to put in every few months, just so you can see how things are trending. But overall, lake quality is really good this time of year, as typically it is.
They're graphs, what they are.
Yeah.
Thank you. How was it last 3 months? Was it good throughout this last year? Has it been pretty good?
It's been within typical standards. Yes, all 3 parameters. Yep.
If you guys want to pass those around, take a look at them.
So that's it for water quality.
All right, then with the RFP for legal services.
Yes, this was going to be on the agenda last month, but because of the busy agenda packet we had, the item was taken off, so it's back on this month. Back on February 7th, Tanya and I did speak with Leah Ration from the Attorney's Office, Drummond and Woodsum, to talk about beginning that project to look into the cost-sharing apportionment issue. When we talked to her, her recommendation to us was to have, as you remember, Attorney Jim Frost was the one that drafted that memo, that RFP for us. She recommended talking with him and have him bring back to us sort of a recommendation on how to proceed, because the way the RFP was written, as you remember, there was quite a range of costs that we could have paid to have them start the study, and she thought it would be helpful to get some clarification as if they could speak together and have him come talk with us, so there's a comfort level moving forward, knowing what the true scope of services will be to try to keep the cost of that study down if that's something we want to pursue. I know that Jim has talked with her. He's prepared to come talk to us about that, but that's kind of where we are. So this has been delayed a month, so we're kind of picking it up again. So I guess what I'm looking for is whether or not we want to follow through with that, have Jim Pross come and talk to us about how to proceed with this RFP to make it the most effective possible.
Steve, I have to motion to go into executive session to discuss this because of the, with the press here and everything, and our issues with the city of Lewiston on cost apportionment. Those discussions should be done.
Let's put that at the end of the meeting then.
Okay.
Okay. Approval of the bond, approval of the, that passed the city council.
Yes, this is in there just for your information because when this was first brought up for us to pursue a bond, a $2 million bond for infrastructure replacement, the vote was taken. We pursued it. As a matter of fact, it's, I believe, getting approved today by the...
It was approved today, but we do need to take a vote on that because it was not on the agenda in January when we voted. We need public notice for that.
Yeah, we need public notice 7 days prior to a vote being taken to appropriate the bond. So it's not a problem, but we did advertise in the paper last week that this vote was going to take place. So we need a formal vote for that $2 million bond.
So the public will know, it's just for infrastructure improvement, you need replacing old water pipes underground.
Right.
That's standard, and we generally pay cash for it. This is going to be with the bonding. I talked with Jill Eastman, it's gonna be less than 1%. We have a bond coming off, so it's budget neutral, and it's gonna allow us to utilize that to replace the pipe that we do and allow us to use cash in some sort of a fund balance type thing for rainy day, is the purpose of it. So,
And as much as possible, we coordinate our underground water replacement pipes and sewer too with the city project. So if the city is resurfacing a road or rebuilding a road or reconstructing a road, basically the cost of asphalt for any work when they're torn up for a city street is about a third, right, Sid? About a third of the cost of the job, roughly?
Probably a little more than that.
A little over a third, just for the asphalt. So we try to coordinate with what we do. We don't try to, we do. Sid and Mike coordinate with the city on their project when the road's going to be opened up. So we can do our underground work at the same time as the city, because the city's going to repave it anyways. So we have to do our work underneath, replacing water pipes, sewer pipes, and then we don't have to pay that huge amount of money, over a third of the cost of the project, for the pavement. So we work with the city in that way.
Tanya, just to correct, we did have public notice. It is on our agenda, so we can make a motion now, right?
Correct.
Okay.
that's what we need. Motion to approve this bond is what we're...
Yeah, so a motion to approve the $2 million general resolution bond for infrastructure replacement.
Can I ask you a question? That doesn't include that, what Eric was talking about, the laying down of the plans for the filtration, is it?
No, nothing to do
Okay,
with
I'm
that.
just asking.
That's coming up.
We have a motion.
Second. Any other discussion? All in favor? Okay. And then this is a standard, this is not a standard, this is the bonding, or whether or not we're gonna do a bond for the filtration plant, to have a standing filtration plan. So.
I guess I'll take that away. Last fall, every year, the state revolving loan fund has a application process where you can put in a request for a bond to do any number of different things. So the board last fall voted to put forward a request to the state revolving loan fund to fund a shovel-ready set of plans and specifications for a filtration plant. So I did that, put in the application, it came back, it did score fairly highly, so that did get approved. It was a $2.5 million bond, And because of the extra money that's out there for the infrastructure improvement, there was a 20% principal forgiveness attached to that request. So there would have been $500,000 of principal forgiveness given for this. After I came back to the board, they requested that I send a letter to the city of Lewiston because, as you know, we share the water supply, we share the water treatment. I wrote a letter to the city of Lewiston officials asking if they were interested in participating in this plan for a shovel-ready set of plans and specs, should a filter plant be needed someday. They responded back that they do have in their long-term capital planning a filter plant because they know that they need it in their long-term plan. Someday it might come up, so it's always on their long-term radar, but it is not on their immediate capital need. It's in their long-term capital program, not in their immediate need. So they did respond back that at this time they're not, they chose not to participate in this project. So given that, we have a decision to make on what to do with this project. My recommendation for whether or not we do this, no help from Lewiston, a $2 million project that would be totally funded by us. If we would have had Lewiston's participation, that would have been $1 million off that.
Did they know of that when they
Yes.
responded to you?
Yep. Yep, they did. There's a few things you should know and some concerns I have about moving forward with this. In order to get a shovel-ready set of plans and specs, you need to have a pilot program. You need to actually sample the water and build a mini filter plant, if you will, to make sure that the equipment that they're specifying matches our water quality characteristics. Knowing that we are not going to be installing a filter plant right off the bat, I have a concern that any water parameters we have now might not match water parameters we have if in the future we happen to lose our filtration waiver for whatever reason. Not only that, technology changes very quickly. Say we don't need a filter plant for 10, 20, 30, or maybe never need one. Any equipment that's matched now to our water quality is not going to be the same when it might come time to really put a filter plant in. So I think anything they specify now is going to be more or less obsolete by the time we need it. We've ran some numbers. As you know, we just approved the $2 million bond for infrastructure replacement. If we were to take on another $2 million bond, that would necessitate a rate increase. That would be a 6% rate increase in 2025, followed by a 6.8% rate increase in 2027. So we'd be looking at two fairly sizable rate increases in order to do this project. Right, something we never even used. And and that would reduce our ability to bond anything else that we might want to be undertaking in the future. I know that we eventually want a equipment garage, and who knows, there are other one-time expenditures that might come up, and I think this would limit our ability to take out a bond and appropriately fund it. It might tie us up for many years to come.
Aside from tabling this, discussion purposes, can we get staff to check in with the federal government? I know Susan Collins just got $2.5 million for the public safety building. There was discussion about another $200 billion for water infrastructure. Remember when we were talking about that? I don't want to kill this, not knowing that there may be more immediate federal funding available for this.
I thought that was the whole reason why
we did it in the first place.
There's no principal forgiveness?
If
Is
we
that what
didn't have it out there, we wouldn't
Right.
be eligible for federal money that was given away.
This
didn't have
I
it.
applied for this every fall is when they have the SRF.
That's state, right?
Yep. the state. And there was an infusion in cash into the state SRF because of the Federal Infrastructure Act. They get like 5 times the amount of money they normally get. But of course, it's a competitive process, and they had way more applications than they could fund, even with this infusion of cash. They did, like I said, this project did score high, and there was a 20% principal forgiveness, but.
And our thought process was if we were able to send this in and get a huge reduction in cost and be able to do this with some grants and things like that, then it would make sense. But I don't think
Doesn't look like
$2 million
No.
is going to make sense.
Would you tell them what SRF stands for?
State revolving fund. It's a state revolving loan fund that the drinking water program administers. Main drinking water program.
Okay, so.
Can we just take no action, or do we have to?
No, we don't have to take action.
Yeah.
So that's the update.
I think we should, if we don't take it this month, I think we should do it next month, because we are on the approval list, and if it's something we decide not to do, I think we should let them know so that frees up the funding for other priority projects they have. Does
this put us in line to get any other sort of funding, any grants, anything like that? If we take our name out, are we going to lose any other infrastructure opportunities that are out there?
No.
So we can table this to the next meeting and then
I think so.
Let the state know. I'll motion to table this to date specific, the April regular meeting.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? All right, table to state-specific next meeting. Okay, so we're gonna have a bunch of executive sessions coming up. First thing we're gonna do, though, is we're gonna do we've done the review of the bylaws. We're gonna have a trustee open session. I'll just say, if you have an old septic system near the lake, my family, we've had a camp on a lake. Very environment, I mean, we care about our lake and keeping the water clean. We just replaced that. My brother and sister and I, we spent $15,000, put an enviroseptic tank in. State of the art, it moved it up behind, and it's not on Lake Auburn, but if you've got an old septic system and you're in the watershed, you should consider replacing your septic system. So I know some people have got some people are right next to the lake here, so, I mean, if you've got a septic system that's 36 inches down into the gravel, it's running into the lake. That's what the science shows. So there's great systems out there, and they'll lift it up, and they'll take care of it, and you'll be doing the lake great. So that's my 2
Steve,
cents.
I'll add to that. If you have a concern about your own septic system, the Lake Auburn Watershed Neighborhood Association, which Pam is involved with, and also now Paula's husband and Brad, they'll do free septic inspection. They'll check your tank out. They'll tell you how to maintain your tank. They'll look at your HHE 200 design. If it's on file at the City of Auburn, typically if it's not on file, that means you do have a really old septic system. You can contact the Lake Association, and then also the Watershed Protection Commission will even, they've done it in the past, pay for pumping it out if you have an issue. They'll help with inspections, and then we're hoping to get the City of Lewiston to help out too with some funding for actual replacement systems, existing systems.
Yeah, if you guys want it, I'd suggest bring it. If we have a proposal for, if you want an idea for funding these replacement, I mean, I don't know, I'm not suggesting, but bring it to the city council. Bring it to the city.
Where would someone find that information, Dan? Is that posted anywhere, or any way that the
He
public
hasn't
would
even
know?
trained us yet.
Oh, are you gonna be doing that, Pam?
Brad and I do them. Pam, we'll come look at it. We'll look at your shit. That's what we do. We'll help.
So anyway, that's my input from trustee open session. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to add?
Just a future agenda item for next meeting as well. The LawPEC appointment is going to be coming up, and the applications kind of look like this.
since there are people here, we need somebody else on the sewer trustees, so.
No, the,
I know, but I'm just.
Yeah.
If anybody wants to get involved, I mean, I appreciate everybody's input, I really do, and I'm glad you're out here. I would encourage you to stay involved and be in the process, that's what I would, so I'm not taking it personally, even though I know it seems, I'm emotional too, so. So, I appreciate everybody's time and I understand where you're coming from, I don't, so. Just don't put that out there. Anybody else?
Like you, ever since I've lived in my whole life, I drink Auburn water
drink
too.
the water, my kids.
73 and you're not gonna eat any healthier than I am. And you, look at you.
Don't look I look in the mirror.
Great water.
What happened?
Yep, great water.
Okay, anybody else have anything? Eric, welcome. Thanks a lot for this great first meeting that you caused.
And your next meeting is gonna be the third Wednesday of the
It's the
month?
same time, yeah. And what's the best way for people to see Sid? They go on our website and they can pull
Yep,
down the
it's
packets.
on the website, it's in the Sun Journal.
They're all videotaped.
Well, I think I'd rather be.
They're gripping.
Yeah. I think being here is much better.
Well, we had to change, so, I mean, like I said, you guys are the first visitors we've ever had.
Well, you might wanna think, I'm coming back, so.
Bring cookies.
Yes. I usually try and run a tighter meeting than this. It's awfully late. Okay, so we've got executive sessions, we're not gonna come back, so we don't have any more items other than executive session stuff, so we'll come back and close, so thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
I really do appreciate it. So we're moving to executive session?
Yeah, I'd like to move into executive session for 1 MRSA 4056A to discuss the personnel matter. No, I'm sorry.
Potential land transaction.
405C, potential land transaction.
Okay, awesome, thank you.
Is there a second?
Second. All in favor?
Thank you.
An executive session in accordance with 1 MRSA 4056A to discuss personnel matter.
Okay, yeah.
Second, someone?
Second. All in favor?
All right, you are back.
All right, we have one piece of business to do.
We need to move back into.
We are officially out of executive session.
Yeah, don't need to vote to do that.
Okay, so Dan has a motion.
I'm making a motion, and you don't have to write this down, I got it here for you.
Oh, okay, thank you.
I'm
This was
making a
based on our
motion
last executive session.
to sign and hire Drummond and Woodson attorneys at law for project-based legal services, Phase 1, as outlined in their July 21st, 2021 proposal, not to exceed $30,000 with an emphasis on renegotiating the 1997, the 1999, and other applicable agreements with the City of Lewiston to ensure Auburn water ratepayers only pay their apportioned use for all watershed and water delivery costs, not unlike the sewer apportionment process. In addition, the cost apportionment group will meet again with the City of Lewiston as soon as possible to negotiate cost apportionment.
Second.
Okay, any discussion on that?
Good, you're giving her a copy.
Yeah.
For clarification, is the Jim Pross thing out?
Okay, thank you.
Unless you want to take Jim with you to Lewiston.
You mean the
That was, well, as I mentioned before this became an executive session item, Leah Ration from Drummond and Woodson that was her suggestion to me to have Jim further clarify.
And this is our suggestion to them, to hire them. And they can further.
I think if they want to talk to Jim, that's all right, but I don't think that I think approaching it the way that we're approaching it, engaging them is the direction that I feel most comfortable with. As opposed to directing Jim to go down and say, hey, let's chat about what has happened. I think we engage them in the project. It's an independent project, and if they feel the need to discuss it with Jim, then I would be okay with it.
I'll tell you, when we talked to Leah, she was flying blind, so she was hoping to have that to better define. She felt that was.
Yeah, so the motion actually mentions specifically the 97 and the 1999 and any other applicable agreements. So we're being real specific on what she needs to do. Any other discussion?
I'm sure they'll have questions they can bring into Sid, which will relay them to Steve, and
Yeah.
go from there, I think.
Call a question.
What was the motion? Is there a second?
Yeah, I seconded the motion. We had
All in favor?
some discussion.
All opposed? Okay, it passes.
Motion to adjourn?
Second. All in favor?
But there's an executive session and one more.
Which says it,
What was that one about?
No, we did it, didn't we?
That was gonna be a
The
cost
person.
apportionment. Remember, we discussed having that, the third executive session.
That was what it
Did
was.
everybody get this timeline? Other than that, it should be a public document, right?
No, the executive session is what we just voted on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cost apportionment executives, which one?
You've done the first one, the second one, you haven't had the third one that's
We've
6E.
We did.
Yeah, we did do the third one.
Oh, you
We
went
did them
from-
all.
You went from
Well,
Yeah,
the,
we-
personnel.
well, the
We went
RF,
out
the
to
RFP
end,
was
went
a,
out to
the
end.
RFP was a regular agenda item, and you said you wanted to go into executive session, so there's
Oh.
actually
I thought
four
we put
executive
it into
sessions,
the
we've only
third
done
one.
three.
That was my understanding, that it went into the third one.
What was the third one?
RFP for legal services, we moved it into
405,
the executive
6E.
session
What's that
related
for?
to negotiations.
Remember, we discussed that, and that was gonna be for discussing cost apportionment items.
That's,
It made you feel that RFP is already kind of melded into that, and that's fine.
I thought that was what it
Yeah.
was about.
Yeah, and that motion authorizes us to go reach back out to Lewiston as we were gonna do, to
Yep.
engage again, and
Okay.
have another meeting with them as we did before, now that the PUC is on the other side.
In the meantime, we'll retain our Portland attorneys.
Yeah. So we've got a motion to adjourn, all in favor? Okay, we adjourn.
Did you have a second?
We had a process to do that.